Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1621B, and today's date is July 23rd, 2018, and the title of the episode is Calls to Declassify Grows Louder, Deep State Panics. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview on Sunday. It is with Lee Argance and Malay Panchal. You can find this on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. Or you can come over to the x22report.com or newssentinel.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, you can play the interview right there, or go to Steemit, that is steemit.com/@x22report. Now, for those who don't know already, Sean's channel, his YouTube channel, SGT Report, was taken down. He had like 345,000 subscribers. He put in about 8 years of work into this channel. Thousands of videos and interviews, they're all erased. So basically what happened was history was erased like it never existed. I mean, if you really think about it, it feels like it's 1984 where you're getting rid of the information, and if you get rid of the information, it's like it never really happened. Now, Sean has put a lot of work into his reports. I love his reports. I think they're informative. I think they're well researched, and I guess what happened was he was getting too close to the truth of certain individuals, and they didn't want him to go any further. And he did start a backup channel called SGT Report 2. So what we need to do, and this doesn't cost you any money or anything like that, if you were subscribed on his main channel, SGT Report, you need to go over to his SGT Report 2 channel and subscribe there and build his channel back up. What we also can do, if you have a Twitter account, we can tweet to @TeamYouTube and politely demand that they reinstate his channel. I think they did this with Jordan Sather, and I had Jordan Sather on the Spotlight. I interviewed him, and we're going to be doing another interview very soon. So I think what we need to do is we need to go and tweet and politely ask YouTube to reinstate Sean's channel. And once again, if it can happen to Sean, it can happen to anyone. And we are seeing this happen right now, where if people get too close to the truth, they give them a strike, then they give them another strike, and then before you know it, boom, the channel's taken down. Sometimes, yes, they're brought back up, but once again, at this point, Sean has lost all of his work, and we need to support him. We need to show the establishment, the deep state, that, listen, you can't take away our channel and stop us. We'll start another one. People will support this, and we will build it right back up. So if you can, go to SGT Report 2. I'm going to have the links at the bottom of this video, and subscribe to his backup channel. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, everything that we've been seeing with the deep state and all these different things with the FISA application, with the emails on Clinton's server and the rest, everything was very carefully orchestrated to cover their tracks. And the problem now is that all of these things are coming to light. Now, of course, we have the Inspector General report, and that is still classified. They're getting the heavily redacted report on certain items. And the calls for getting the declassified report, they are getting louder and louder. We'll be talking about that in just a minute. But what we're seeing out of this, and remember, with this revelation about the FISA memo with Carter Page, this was redacted. This wasn't the full part of the report showing this, and the FISA memo is also redacted. So we're not even seeing the full information. We're seeing bits and pieces, and they're letting it out drip by drip by drip. And I think this is being done on purpose right now to get the American people used to the crimes that were committed. And we have to go back to Q, where Q said, like, if this is all let out, people are going to reject, people are going to become angry. The deep state through this might start riots. Now, dripping this out a little bit at a time, getting people used to the idea that this whole thing was made up. It's a hoax. And these individuals, they are the ones who committed treason. I think this is being done very, very slowly to get the American people used to this idea, to calm the situation down when the IG report is completely declassified. Let me give you an example, like Peter Strzok's wife, who is the SEC director. She was put into place on purpose. She blocked all FBI investigations into the Clintons. Now, Peter Strzok's wife is Melissa Hodgman. She was promoted to Deputy Director of the Securities Exchange Commission's Enforcement Division literally hours after Strzok and FBI Director Andrew McCabe were debriefed about the Clinton emails found on Weiner's computer. The True Pundit reported the FBI original warrant for Weiner's laptop was issued in late September 2016, and a subsequent warrant was issued on October 30th, 2016, so that the FBI could use Huma Abedin's and Hillary Clinton's classified emails as evidence in the reopened Clinton probe. Hodgman was promoted October 14th, 2016, literally hours after investigators started to examine the laptop's contents for Clinton's emails and assorted files and other things. Now, federal sources said the FBI field office in New York, who handled the original Weiner warrant for then U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, reported to Strzok and McCabe that they had found evidence pertaining to the Hillary Clinton email case on October 12, 2016. 36 hours later, Hodgman was promoted in the SEC. Now, is this a coincidence? Most likely not. They wanted his wife in that SEC slot for a reason. With Hodgman at the SEC and Strzok at the FBI, it would be virtually impossible to even know what cases linked to the Clinton Foundation had criminal merit, if each were trying to keep all things Clinton-related quiet. So we can see right now, everything was done on purpose. Now, on Saturday, we had the release of the FISA application, and it exposes this flimsy FBI witch hunt. So the FBI's heavily redacted FISA warrant application for Carter Page reveals that the Obama administration, eager to make a case to spy on U.S. citizens, most likely Trump, and believe me, Obama was spying on many other people, put together a combination of facts and innuendo from Page's business dealings in Russia, several press reports of varying reliability, and of course the infamous Clinton-funded Steele dossier, which the FBI went to great lengths to justify despite being largely unable to verify its claims. Perhaps the most concerning takeaway, however, is the stark disconnect between the FBI's multiple allegations against Page versus the fact that he hasn't been charged with a single crime after nearly 2 years of Department of Justice and FBI investigations. And this is coming from Paul Sperry. Breaking. FBI's FISA warrant actually cites as evidence the spy on Carter Page Trump campaign Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid's 2016 letter to Comey, citing information he got from John Brennan, who got it from Clinton dossier. Talk about circular evidence. In fact, aside from the Clinton-funded Steele dossier, source number 1, the FISA application cited no other evidentiary sources. So, coming from Paul Sperry once again, the FISA apps filed to spy on Trump's advisor Page says there is no type of evidence or source listed other than source number 1, and source number 1 is Christopher Steele. There is no source number 2, there is no source number 3, just one source. The application also reveals that FBI agent Peter Strzok lied when he said he had nothing to do with the FISA application. The FISA app also mentions a letter Page wrote to Comey denying the allegations made by Isikoff through Steele. Strzok used this as a pretext to interview Page. The FBI also went to extreme lengths to convince the FISA judge that Steele, source number 1, was reliable when they could not verify the unsubstantiated claims in his dossier, while also having to explain why they still trusted this information after having terminated Steele's contract over inappropriate disclosures he made to the media. The warrant application also confirms a February report that the FBI received a copy of the dossier from the Obama State Department after Steele provided it to senior DOS official Jonathan Winter. Winter also approached by Clinton confidant Sidney Blumenthal with a separate anti-Trump dossier written by longtime Clinton pal Cody Shearer. So 2 separate Clinton-originated dossiers went from Steele and Blumenthal to the State Department, which then gave it to the FBI. Of course, the agency also had a copy it received in early August 2016 directly from Steele himself. And we also now know that they were multiple versions of the document, which went through various conduits before reaching the FBI. So when you look at this whole entire thing was a hoax created by Clinton, Obama, Strzok, Hodgman, and the rest. Comey left him out. And Trump went on to say, and he tweeted, looking more and more like the Trump campaign for president was illegally being spied upon for the political gain of crooked Hillary Clinton and the DNC. Ask her how that worked out. She did better with crazy Bernie. Republicans must get tough now in a legal scam. And it is an illegal scam. Now, you need to think about this for a second. Everything that is coming out right now is redacted, is still the classified version. This is not the declassified, unredacted version that everyone can see. So what we're hearing right now is the heavily redacted, classified version of all this. And just with that, we can see what is coming out of here. And the deep state, they're becoming very, very nervous, and they're starting to point fingers at each other. I mean, look at former Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper. He admitted while doing an interview with CNN that former President Obama instigated the ongoing investigations into Trump and those in his orbit. So Clapper right now is getting very, very nervous, and he's pointing the finger at Obama. And we're starting to see Comey was doing this with Strzok and Page. We can see that all these individuals, they're going to be running scared right now. Now, in the beginning, I said there are calls out there to declassify the IG report. Now, if we go back to Q says this might need to be forced. We need people to bring it up. We need people to say declassify this report. So House Judiciary Chair Bob Goodlatte said that the American public needs to see an unredacted version of the Carter-Page FISA application. So right there and then, we need to see the unredacted versions of these things. Judicial Watch, which is a government watchdog group, came out and said, listen, we need the president. Actually, Tom Fitton is urging the president to step in and declassify the 412 pages of top secret documents related to surveillance conducted against the Trump campaign chairman, Carter Page. Judicial Watch went on to say the document revealed that the Department of Justice and FBI relied on the Steele dossier in the FISA application to spy on Page. These documents are heavily redacted, but seem to confirm the FBI and Department of Justice misled the courts in withholding the material information that Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC were behind the intelligence used to persuade the courts to approve the FISA warrants and targeted the Trump team. The warrants are controversial because the FISA court was never told that the key information justifying the request came from the dossier. Given this corruption, Trump should intervene and declassify the heavily redacted material. So there are calls coming out pushing Trump to do something. And this is exactly what Q said was going to happen. Trump wants individuals in Congress outside to continually yell and scream to declassify all of this. And who has the power to do this? Trump does. And once that is declassified, well, the deep state, they're going to be running. They're going to be hiding. Or they'll suicide themselves. We don't know. Or they'll make it seem like they died from maybe natural causes, and this way you can't go after them. And we'll get into that in just a minute. So what's very odd is that news organizations, they're starting to lay off people in their news organizations. Now, New York Daily News, they're going to be firing half of their staff. And this is very odd right now. Among those departing will be editor-in-chief Jim Rich and managing editor Kristen Lee. And I believe that they're trying to clean house because all these different news organizations, they were controlled by the deep state. They were given information by the deep state. They were told what to say by the deep state. It was all scripted. And they're saying, well, it has to do with the changing, flow of information. It has to do with the way they do business. We have to restructure. And you know that when everything starts to fall apart, you got to get rid of all those individuals that were feeding the public propaganda. And I believe this is just going to be the beginning stages. I think many other news organizations are going to start to get rid of certain individuals and try to restructure and rebrand themselves to show that, yeah, we weren't part of this, but they all are. Now, from everything that's been happening, it seems that the super wealthy, they are looking to get out of Dodge. And what we're seeing right now is the super rich, they are spending up to $23 million for a second passport. Citizenship by Investment Program, CIPS, allows the super rich a new nationality and an alternative or second passport. Now, the ultra-rich are spending something around $23 million for citizenship in another country. So the question is, why are they doing this? Well, one of the main reasons are they want peace of mind in case of social disturbance or other upheavals in their native countries. And they need to escape and go to a different country. In other words, if an economic or social collapse occurred in the United States, the super rich would have the ability to jump on their Gulfstream or 70-foot Sunseeker yacht and bug out to their second country. Now, there are about 10 countries that offer prospective residents the ability to buy citizenship. This includes Austria, which commands an astonishing $23 million for citizenship, Malta, which requires $1 million, Caribbean islands like St. Lucia, Dominica, Antigua, Barbuda, which charge about $100,000 apiece. And we see right now that these individuals, when everything starts to fall apart, when people might be coming after them, they're going to skip town. And they have bunkers and other things built in different countries already waiting for them. We talked about this in previous reports a couple of years ago, where on certain islands and certain territories, they built runways, they have bunkers, and they're all prepared for everything to go south. We see that the Normandy 4 officials, they have gotten together. This is Russia, Ukraine, Germany, and France, and they are discussing the Minsk agreements once again about implementing it. And right now, Ukraine is not abiding by the Minsk agreement. We went over this many, many times before because the deep state would never allow this. But it looks like things are changing right now, and we might see something happen because we know that Putin and Trump, they met, they talked about this, and we might see a change there. We see that things are really heating up with Iran, and it looks like we're following the same exact path that we followed in North Korea, where both sides yell at each other, and then all of a sudden they come together. Now let's look at this. On July 22nd, Iranian President Rouhani warned that the U.S. that war with Iran is the mother of all wars, while not completely rejecting the idea of peaceful agreement. Rouhani's exact words were, "Must understand that war with Iran is the mother of all wars, and peace with Iran is the mother of all peace." And he was speaking in front of diplomats in Tehran. And the Iranian president also warned Trump, "Do not play with the lion's tail because you will regret it eternally." Now, we know that Pompeo, this is the U.S. Secretary of State, he compared the Iranian leaders to the mafia while he was talking to individuals in California. This was an Iranian-U.S. audience, and he said something about the Iranian officials being like the mafia. Trump came out and he tweeted on July 22nd, and he tweeted this to Iranian President Rouhani, and this was done in all caps: "Never, ever threaten the United States again, or you will suffer consequences the likes of which few throughout history have ever suffered before. We are no longer a country that will stand for your demented words of violence and death. Be cautious." So what we see happening here is what we saw with North Korea, where both sides scream and yell at each other. They threaten each other, and this is all done as a production. Remember, each country has their own deep state faction. Each country would like to be free of this deep state faction. Even Putin admitted that there are certain forces throughout the world that are trying to control certain governments. And of course, I do believe that this is the central bank, and tied to the central bank are many deep state operatives. And we see right now that this most likely will play out like it did in North Korea. Will we see regime change in Iran? I don't think so. Even though they're out there calling for a regime change, this is not part of Trump's MO. I think what's going to happen, and Trump has said this before, he will be expecting a call from the Iranian leader. Actually, if you look at North Korea, who reached out to Trump? Kim Jong-un. Now, do I think another entity might step in and facilitate some of this? Yes. And we saw this in North Korea. This was China, kind of helped mold the entire peace negotiations. We saw South Korea also come in and mold the negotiations, and we could see that the same thing might occur in Iran, because we can see out in the Middle East, things are rapidly deteriorating very, very quickly. And we're getting reports that Israel is running bombing missions in Syria. Now, they're not going after Iranian bases, Iranian chemical installations. What Israel is doing, and we have to remember, Israel, the U.S., the deep state, the UK, Germany, France, these were the coalition forces that were pushing the war in Syria. Right now, they are destroying the evidence. This is a mop-up operation. And those individuals who don't want to be found out, they don't want them to find certain things or documents and whatnot, they are cleaning all of this up right now. They're actually helping individuals escape the country, because remember, these are paid mercenaries. These aren't Syrians who are fighting for freedom and democracy. These were put into the country. They were paid mercenaries. They're the deep state forces. Israel right now has welcomed 4 top commanders of the Syrian rebel force, and they allowed them to flee to Israel. We see the white helmets, which is really an Al-Qaeda offshoot. Well, we see that Israel evacuated 800 white helmets. We see Jordan took in something like 400 white helmets into that area, because the jig is up. The game has come to an end. And they're removing their assets from Syria. Basically, right now, Syria and Russia have taken control of the country. They're getting rid of all evidence, everything that's been in there all this time, and removing it. This is why it's going through Israel. This is why the Syrian rebels are going through Israel and Jordan, because this is where all these individuals came from. Now, Netanyahu is out there saying, well, I wasn't the one who wanted to do this. Trudeau and Trump told me to do this. Well, Trump knows that these individuals, they are Al-Qaeda. He understands that these are terrorists. And again, do I believe Netanyahu? Well, he's lied many, many times before with the red line and the bombs and everything else. So do I believe him now? I don't think so, because we need to look back in time here. Trump has stopped the funding for the moderate rebels, the Syrian Democratic Forces, the Syrian Free Army, the Kurdish forces, the training of these moderate rebels in Jordan. It was all shut down. Everything was shut down. And we see right now it's because there's no purpose for the U.S. to be in Syria. This was the deep state's plan. to get into Syria, then move into Iran, and control the entire Middle East with regime change everywhere. That plan is not there anymore. It's being shut down. The deep state is being routed out. The deep state is in panic mode right now. They're on the run. This is exactly what we see happening right now. We see Russia, they have sent the U.S. a strategy for returning refugees to Syria. So what they've done is they put together this preliminary agreement reached by Putin and Trump, and people living in refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, and everywhere else, they're going to be heading back to Syria. And this is why Soros is kind of crazy, because he doesn't have those refugees to push into Europe. This is why he's going down to Africa and spending a lot of money and asking the EU to spend a lot of money to get these refugees from Africa up into Europe. Will that plan work? Most likely not. So what we're seeing right now is everything starting to fall apart. We see calls for the declassified report. They are getting louder. And of course, they're saying, let's declassify this part. Let's get this part. And before you know it, the cries are going to get louder and louder just because of what we're seeing here. Just from the redacted and the classified parts, people are starting to scratch their heads and say, wow, there must be a lot more in this. If we remove the redacted and declassify all this, we're going to see the truth, and this is really, really bad. And the deep state right now, they're panicking. This is why they're pointing fingers, and they're starting to really sweat it out. Now, what's very interesting is that Senior Bush's heart doctor was shot riding a bicycle. And this is very interesting, and I don't believe in coincidences. Why would they shoot this man down? It makes no sense. He knows the history of Bush. So what I'm thinking is, like I said in the beginning, certain individuals are going to create illnesses. Q told us about McCain, and I believe they're going to maybe fake their death and pretend that they've died and then go in hiding. Now, you have to get rid of those individuals that know your background and know anything about you to pull this off. And I think this is a very strange and odd thing that happened. And this is a terrible thing that happened. But we can see that these individuals, they'll go to any length to cover up all their crimes. And they know that things are starting to fall apart now. And time is against them. And the deep state, all of them, they're all panicking right now. They don't know what to do. And it looks like they're getting ready to run or maybe do other things. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.